All right, we're back. It seems like it's been long. Why does it seem like it's been long? Did we have somebody on last Friday?
Because we went from Thursday to Friday.
We went what?
We had somebody on at Thursday.
Oh, we had Thursday? Okay.
Coach Johnson.
Time's moving so fast. All right, today's gonna be a great one. We're gonna talk. We're gonna change it up a little bit. Talk a little bit of officiating, which is always a hot topic in one way, shape, or form. So,
thankless job.
Oh, as thankless job as it gets,
but
necessary. But necessary.
100%. Probably one of the most underrated aspects of the game, or what we do, in terms of just having officials that are on the same page, that understand the process. Like, it is you couldn't pay me enough to do that gig.
There's no doubt. It's definitely a it's always controversial.
You're never right. You're just never right.
And we got no better person than to talk about this than Mike D'Ambrosia, who is a longtime official. He has tremendous experience in this area. He's been an athlete himself. Obviously, he's officiated for a long time. And so we're going to talk about all these topics and then some. Let's bring him on right now. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Hey, Mike. How are you, man? Appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
No, thank you guys for having me.
I like that whistle talk in the background.
Gotta promote it.
What does it say underneath? I can't see it.
Inside the Mind of a Football Official.
There it is. Is that a book?
No, that's my podcast.
Oh, that's your podcast. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Oh gosh, yeah, I gotta get a listen over there on that.
Yeah, I've had a couple of good guests so far. Got a couple of them lined up. So I had Danny Garrett on just recently too. So I know you guys have spoken with Danny before.
Yep, absolutely. We had Danny Garrett on.
We can't forget him.
Oh yeah. Before we dive into all of this, why don't you give everybody a background, officiating, sports, playing, all that kind of stuff, so we get a good background on you, and then go from there.
Sure. So I'm plugging Danny because Danny and I actually were college teammates together and actually roommates back in college, back at Montclair State. Yeah, go Redhawks. So I actually my college career kind of got cut short. I had a couple injuries. I was told that I had injured my neck, and so I actually stopped playing on my own volition. And Coach G, at 21 years old, offered me a coaching position. So I actually started coaching at Montclair, and ironically, I was Danny's coach his last year, his senior year. He and I were still roommates, and I was coaching him. So it was an interesting dynamic, to say the least.
A little different dynamic right there, that's for sure.
Yeah. Positive as I was coaching tight end, so Danny was still on the defensive side.
Yeah, he was just, beating the shit out of the tight end every play. That's fine.
Pretty much. But so yeah, I got into coaching right away, and I coached at Montclair for 3 years. Then I jumped with Coach Billy Johnson to Passaic Valley, and I was offensive coordinator there. Week. Oh, you had Moose on? I didn't realize that. Awesome.
Yep. Dave got the understanding of the Moose thing, so now he gets it, right?
Oh, that's right, Moose. All right, Mo. So, I got to coach at Passaic Valley with Billy for a couple of years. He allowed me to be the offensive coordinator and special teams coordinator there with him. But then my family kind of brought me back to where I was back in Monmouth County, where I grew up. So I moved back down to Monmouth County, started coaching and teaching in Monmouth County. Bounced around a little bit, was at Freehold Township, at Marlboro. Got to coach at Monmouth Regional with Bobby Acosta. And then I finished up coaching at Barnegat because I was living in the area. But again, now I have kids. The coaching aspect was starting to get to be a little bit too much with the commute, with the summers and everything like that. So I retired from coaching high school sports, I should say, because now I'm coaching my kids' sports. And so I had all the background of coaching and yelling at the officials and thinking I knew everything about the sport. And I was approached at my school by another official saying, hey, we're always looking for people that know the sport, that are involved, that know how to deal with kids. That you're a teacher. Have you ever thought about officiating? And I'm like, are you crazy? Heck no. And I heard your guys' intro for the same reasons. I'm like, it's a thankless job. But then I sat back and I was thinking, I'm like, well, this is a great way for me to stay involved in the sport that I love. I thought I knew everything at the time, like all coaches. So I decided to take the class, and here I am 8 years later, working on a great crew. Got to work a state championship game this past fall. Working a couple semifinal games, got some big games, and having some fun, getting to see from a different perspective.
Yeah, so that's a background thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, that the playing background usually precludes a lot of guys coming into officiating. So,
Right.
the one of the myths of coaches on officials is that they don't know anything about the game. You know what I mean? That they're just officiating on the rules, right? And they don't know actually how it all works. But that's actually not true. Most officials played the game, and that's one of the kind of myths of officiating. Talk about kind of some of the. I mean, there's a lot we could cover on this, but talk about some of the things that you see going on in officiating that, from the time you started 8 years ago to now, that are maybe rule changes, or I mean, we'll get to the NFL thing, which we definitely want to talk about, because that's a hot topic and tackle.
Yeah.
But some of the things that you guys have really had to evolve with from an officiating standpoint.
Well, I mean, from being an old school player and coach, I mean, you guys can relate to what our old highlight films used to be with blindside blocks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, heck, we were taught on kickoffs, cutting across the field and kind of headhunting for somebody. So that's probably that rule with the defenseless receiver, with the blindside blocks and stuff like that. I was just looking through the book again. It was probably the toughest thing for me as an official, because being in the stands, being on the sidelines, I was always like, oh, great block. And now it's not a great block.
That's kind of what people want to see. It's crazy. And
that's what they wanted to see.
Yeah. I mean, you remember setting up
to want to see, right?
Not anymore. I mean, it's just not around anymore. They look at old school. I mean, even not that long ago, right? Like, you're looking at highlights. I mean, you would set up the wall on a punt return and look to take that guy right out on a blindside block, or a crackback block, right? A receiver coming down and cracking on an end and things of that nature. Like, it's just not part of the game anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, it took me a while to get used to it and to truly set my mind's frame in that aspect. But ultimately, it is for the safety of the kids, and that is what our main objective is. I mean, we talk about it on a crew. Our main objective is to spot the ball and keep the game going. We want the game to be clean. We want it to be run efficiently, but we ultimately want the kids to be safe. So, and that is a rule that with the size and speed now, and you guys are seeing it with all the recruiting, the size and the speed now, it's absurd of how big and fast these kids are, again, compared to when we were playing. So for the safety aspect, I do agree with the rule. It's just, it still has a lot of human element in it. What was the person facing him? Was he able to defend himself? Was the receiver have an opportunity to regain control? We had a situation with a hit on a defenseless receiver where they're trying not to go low, but the kid never got to the ground. He got his legs taken out from underneath him, and we had to call that penalty because he came down violently. And again, that was what we used to teach as coaches. A bigger receiver, chop him down like a tree. But now we got to look at it from a different perspective, from the safety aspect. And I know, Coach Schuman, you mentioned we're going to touch on the NFL one. I don't know where they're going now, to be honest with you, with the new rule. It's going to be flag football soon, it seems like, almost with some of the rules that they're implementing. But I got to say that the blindside block and that crackback block were probably the most difficult ones for me to set my mind straight on and say, all right, that's now a foul. I got to throw that one. Like the holding penalties, the false starts, those are the easy ones. But it's those big 15-yard penalties now too. You don't want to throw them because they are drive killers. But again, it's all about the safety of the kids. We're ultimately there to make sure that the kids have a great experience, have fun, learn the game in a safe environment, or in the safest environment, because it's not a safe environment at all.
That's just not the game.
No,
Right.
it is still a violent contact sport.
Right.
100%.
What's interesting? So like the crackback block, for example, like a guy comes back and the guy turns and he can't see him, you can't lay into him. Now if he turns and he sees you, are you allowed to put hands on him? So are you allowed to so that's always the gray area in that one, right? Like, so I turn back, he now comes forward, am I able to put my hands on him? And that was always, I always thought that was always the touchy one, because like you teach your kids, like, okay, you can't shoulder him, you can't do any of that kind of, but if you put hands on, now the issue is he has to obviously fully 100% see you, right? Because otherwise he probably gets lifted off the ground even on a hands on, right?
Yeah, so and that is where the gray area is. The big one that how we're taught to look at it is, and it typically is going to happen on a broken play, on a kick return, different things like that, where you got somebody going back and forth, sideline to sideline.
Right.
It's initially, now when we see somebody heading back towards their own goal line, that's our trigger. All right, we gotta keep an eye on this one.
Right.
If they set a pick, if they just get their body in front, we got nothing. Like that.
Right.
That's exactly what they're looking for. But and coach, you're saying hands up. Even if it's hands up, that's still a clean block.
Right.
Even if they kind of extend their hands, it's when they're
course.
lowering the shoulder and the old school ear hole in somebody.
Yes.
That's where we have the flag.
Yeah.
But again, we try to throw that flag with a little bit of a delay. We want to process what we saw first. We want to see it, process it. Was it open hands? And then throw the flag. So sometimes that flag, people are screaming and yelling at us. Oh, you threw that flag like 5 minutes late. We're trying to make sure that we have it correctly. And again, I had one recently in a game where I threw it, play ended. I immediately went. Now I'm an umpire for the most part. I'm in the middle of the field. Same type of broken play. It was actually a screen pass, and the offensive lineman peeled back and got somebody. And after I threw it, I immediately went to my side judge and my back judge and say, hey, did you guys see what I saw? I said, and we talked about it before we reported it to our referee to signal it. But I saw it. I processed it. I just wanted to make sure that maybe I missed open hands or anything like that. But we all had the same thing. So coach wasn't happy with it. But again, it was the safety of the player. So he lowered his shoulder into him.
No, that makes sense. And then a lot of the things that you see, like, it's interesting because when obviously concussions became an issue, they obviously want, you're taking away helmet to helmet, those kind of things, targeting. And then now you have an issue, I guess, with which they're addressing now, where guys are going low. So, they were going high, people are getting head injuries, right? Now they're going low, people are getting knee injuries and ankle injuries and those kind of injuries, right? So it's one of those things where, so you went from bite the ball, wrap up, drive through the guy. In the old days, used to be almost down the middle, right? When you were tackling them, to now everything's below the hip for the most part, as much as possible below the hip and below, and that created a different set of injuries, right? Where kids' legs are getting caught, and that's obviously all the way up to the NFL, right? Their legs get caught right underneath them. They tear a knee, they roll an ankle bad, they break an ankle, right? Those kind of things. Lower leg injuries have become. I haven't looked at the stats before this, but my guess is that it's gone through the roof. So lower leg injuries because of the switching of where the tackling lies, right? Because you said still a violent game, right? It's just you're shifting the violence from one area to the next, right?
Correct.
So before we talk about the hip drop part, talk about how, like, are you seeing a situation where you have to officiate some of that stuff now? Like you mentioned, to taking down the big tight end that's really tall. So is that something that now is much more officiated too?
It is, but I got to say, we're the trickle down effect at the high school level. I was recently just talking to somebody at the college level, and we were talking about with the targeting rule about the ejections and stuff like that. He was adamant against it, and I understand that. But because we're the third level, I think it is getting taught earlier on the proper tackling technique.
Right.
So we're not seeing as much of that. We're not seeing as much as the spearing anymore. We're not seeing as much as the helmet. The helmet to helmet contact, again, that's kind of a gray area because you got your running backs dropping levels and different things like that. So that's also a very difficult one. But the tackling aspect of it and the blind side hits, I think for the most part, the high school kids are getting it. It's being taught at an earlier age, and hopefully we'll start seeing that trickle up with the teaching coming at the lower level and going up. So at the high school level, it hasn't, in my opinion, it hasn't been too bad. It was addressed. It was a point of emphasis a couple of years ago. Coaches didn't like it, but now I think the coaches are more accepting of it and hopefully teaching it the right way. But yeah, now we're getting away from they're talking with the old Pete Carroll tackling technique now with the gator wrap and roll.
Wrap and roll.
Yes.
It's literally what's taught. That's just what's taught, right? And I think now because concussions are such a big deal, and a couple of years ago it was almost like football was like this might not be around in 5 years, like that was the level of, I think, like fear that was imposed or put on people. And now because of that, I feel like tackling is taught at the younger levels with more of an emphasis on the correct way to do it, right? Like youth coaches have to, there's a lot of that kind of going into it. So now that's just the way they've always learned. You don't have that kind of where you were switching from some coaches teaching bite the ball, right, to now almost across the board, everybody's going with your eyes through the thighs, wrap and roll, that type of thing. I think that's just where the high school has gone now. These guys don't even know the other way to tackle, right? Because they were never, they were just never taught it. It was just a time thing that, it had to process through.
And is the wrap and roll, like my question on the wrap and roll, is that I get it safer from a head standpoint. I get it 100%. But is that overall safer on a from a body standpoint, right? Like,
well, would you rather use your head or would you rather use your shoulder?
No, I'd rather,
pull a flag.
I look at it like this, like bite the ball to me was safer.
Your head face into
your head is outside the body. Okay. You're not putting listen, when I first in the 90s, we were taught to wrap up, head up, right down the middle of them, obviously, right? By the time I got to college, we were really taught we were using that, but we were now using bite the ball, right? Get your head outside, even in the 90s, right? Because
I think it
was a more efficient tackle, right?
I think of how many times you're going to miss. Right.
But my point is this: well, wrap and roll, like because I teach it with young kids. It's like people's legs get caught underneath themselves all the time with wrap and roll. I see it.
Oh, you're thinking from an offensive perspective, getting hurt.
I'm talking about from an offensive perspective.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about defense.
100%. Well, that's what we're talking about with mostly for concussions. Yes. Defensive players get hurt in concussions too, but they still can get hurt no matter how they're tackling. But it was the offensive players that were getting knocked out. That was the biggest issue. Receivers coming across the middle and someone laying them out, defenseless receivers. What I'm talking about with the wrap and roll is first of all, I don't think it's a very efficient way of tackling. So there's a whole bunch of things that go into it because it's near hip and as the most efficient way to tackling, everyone hates when I say this. The most efficient way of tackling is get your shoulders across the person, okay, head on the outside, and whether it's at their hip or their lower and legs, wherever it is, even stomach area, and get across and wrap them and grab cloth from behind. That's the most efficient way to tackle them, and it's the most efficient way to get them down, and probably, in my opinion, the safest way for both people. Now, obviously, when you come up head,
I agree.
Yeah, you start to come up higher. Obviously, that becomes dangerous for both people. Obviously, right? That and obviously when you go way low, it becomes dangerous. Now it's not as dangerous for the defensive player, but now it becomes dangerous for the offensive player with knees and those kind of things. So that's where I think the Pete Carroll thing was a step in the right direction, but not the complete solution. And what you found, what happened because of this is why you have hip drop, right? The hip drop issue is because of wrap and roll. So they're wrapping and they're rolling and they can't get them down. So in order to get them down, they drop their hip. That's why it's become a thing. And that's why
I agree. Like old school thought process, again, getting your head across like you're talking about. But when you're seeing the wrap and roll, they're stopping their feet. And we're teaching everybody, keep your legs driving, keep your legs driving. But now all of a sudden we're teaching them to stop their feet. And now that's turning into the hip drop, where if you're getting your head across and running through the player, worst case scenario is you're stopping forward progress and the play is going to be over even if you don't bring the person down. So I'm still teaching that at my son's level, at the 12-year-old youth level, of getting across and getting your feet going, because the wrap and roll, it turns into an arm tackle. And again, talking about the size and the speed of the kids today, you got 225-pound running backs that are running right through it. I mean, heck, you got 215-pound wide receivers that are running right through it because their legs are so powerful that if you're not running your legs, you're not stopping them. And that, again, turns into all right, let me grab them and drop down. And it's almost, I mean, I understand the rule that they put in and why they put it in, because basically the tackle has turned into a horse collar tackle where you're pulling back and you were seeing those horse collar injuries. But again, it's taking away the nature of the game in essence, of how to teach it properly. Again, if you're teaching them to keep their head out of the way, get it across the body, and run their legs and keep their legs going, you're gonna take away a good amount of the injuries.
The other thing that I thought which is interesting is, and because you coach youth, you see it more in youth, because when you go and they haven't learned all these skills yet, right? So keeping their head up is a problem at the youth area. So when you teach wrap and roll, what do all of them do? They all put their head down, right?
Yep.
All of them. It's just when you go to wrap and roll, when you're going that way as a kid, your head goes down. Okay. It's
correct.
We really have to overemphasize to get them to keep their head up. So what I like, I watched a lot of rugby stuff, right? Like, yes, they wrap and roll I've noticed as a finishing last resort, meaning they go through, they run their feet all the way through the body, and then they roll as a last resort. Because most of the time what I've seen the rugby guys do is, whether it's near hip or across, they just keep running their feet all the way through the hip. And that's really their main goal, is to take them down in that fashion. They roll when it becomes a situation where they're finishing and they can't finish, right? And then I've seen them roll. And I've watched a lot of they have, actually, you can find it all over to YouTube, right? These guys, like the All Blacks, and New Zealand, they have all these like teaching clinics that they have as how they show the way they tackle and stuff. And they teach them also with the pad, right? The pad is up here. They hold the pad, and very few people do this. They hold the pad and the guy comes through the hip, right? So that they get like all the basic, they work through all the levels. And it's so interesting to me because until I started looking at that, because when I started coaching, like when I was coaching high school, I was teaching wrap and roll, we're going, and when I started to teach youth, what was bothering me was the kids were putting their head down. And I was like, how can I fix this? Because we would do the drills that we would do in high school where the high school kids were able to handle it, and the youth kids were putting their head down. I'm like, shoot, this is not good. So we backed it up. And we started working through all that kind of thing to make sure they got their head up. And I think that's a huge thing that as you're teach attack. Now, from a rule standpoint, obviously, do you think hip drop is going to become something in the high school level? Is that going to be
Do you even see it?
Not that I'm aware of. I'll be honest with you. I don't recall seeing that tackle at our level.
It's a pro type of thing.
It's an athletic thing too. I mean, you got to be
correct.
really.
These guys just don't have the. How many times? It's very rare, right? That in high school you have a guy and then like a running back, and you're like he makes a move, and now your linebacker's holding on, and now he's got to pull him back, which is kind of what the hip tackle is. At that point, the whistle's probably blown for, stoppage of play and guys are stalemated, it's over. Or you have somebody else coming in to clean it up before that actually happens.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't think I can recall ever seeing it where I would be like, yo, that's a hip, like you saw horse collar tackles. Right.
Yeah,
like
horse collar tackles, and they modified the horse collar tackle too recently about being on the side too. So,
correct.
But it's still got to be that backwards pull to the ground.
Right.
And also it's now the nameplate too. So it's not just through the collar anymore. It's in the nameplate again to prevent that. But with the hip drop, I can't honestly say that I've actually seen it in a high school game. Now that doesn't mean that it was something that I wasn't looking for. So it was not a foul, nothing like that. So,
and especially
but I can't honestly recall it.
Position, right? That umpire position is where I would think you would see that more so.
Yeah. Yep. And again, I mean, we're
from
still
behind
seeing.
You're talking about, Derek, like from behind.
Like on the side, right? Like running back, he's making a play, right? He's going outside, trying to get to the numbers, right? Now he makes a cut, he comes back inside, and as a linebacker, I'm going to fit him up, coming inside out, and now maybe I slip to the outside, and I kind of give a pull to get him down, because now if I don't, his forward progress is still going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think high school guys are just continuing. And look, the way I teach it is always, look, you run your feet 5 steps after contact, right? Like, I don't want you to just hit him and stop. I want you to go through his body, right? And push him back. So I just think that, it is something I just think it's more of a pro type of thing. The guys at this level, I mean, look, some are athletic like that.
I wonder. I don't know. I don't know. Because you know what? I think what Mike said might be true. You're not looking for it. So if you're not looking for it, like,
they got enough to worry.
Honestly, I didn't even know there was helmet to helmet until it became a rule. Like I didn't even realize that guys were. I didn't realize it was going on that much. Like in my head, I would think, oh, maybe it was once a game.
Nah, man, playing safety, bro. I'm trying to take your head off.
Yeah, but until it became a rule, I didn't even really think about it.
I couldn't play today. I couldn't play in this game.
And now,
I have more 15-yarders. I'd be gone. Like, I'm telling you, I would be gone. First quarter. I probably cost myself 7 interceptions in college because I just wanted to light somebody up. Like, that's what I was taught. I'm sorry. Like, I played this game because it was physical and I loved it. Like, that's what the hitting aspect was, the appeal for me. Like, it was, as a safety, I had a 12-yard running head start, bro, to light you up. And it was coming, whether we were going high. I mean, I wasn't trying to hit you in the head and take your head off, and especially in college, being a smaller guy all the time, like, I had to go low. So, and that was like pre-hurdle era, And that's another rule that's insane that I drives me crazy. Like, a guy jumps over somebody, some guys throw the flag, and it's like, you can't do that. And then another guy, jumps over him, and now he's good to go. That rule was always.
Explain that rule. Explain that rule.
Exactly.
I'm curious about that rule. Explain that rule.
We're putting you on the spot with something.
Yeah,
yeah. That's fine. And again, that's another one of those
that
calls
happen maybe 2-3 times a year.
Yeah, no, I actually had one coach upset with me because I didn't call a hurdling call in the middle of the pile. It was actually on an extra point. A linebacker went to hurdle over the center. Right. But the rule is, if only have 2 feet on the ground, you can't hurdle them. So I'm trying to think of the easiest way to explain it. So if I'm a defensive back going for a tackle and I go low and my feet are still on the ground, but my hand's not on the ground, I can't hurdle him, because what they're afraid of is not only Not only the Antonio Brown scenario with the punter where he came in cleat first on the punter.
Yeah, and just kicked him in the chest.
Yeah, but it's more so they're afraid of the back themselves. It's actually for the backs themselves of getting flipped over and landing head first. So it's still a very gray area. If the guy is launching himself down to the ground and they've got a body part, a hand, a forearm, their knee is on the ground, technically you can hurdle that. But it's Brian Leonard was the one bringing it to fame in the Jersey area with the Leonard leap and stuff like that.
The Leonard leap.
But so that is one that we don't see too often because again, it's just it's something that is taught. It's something that I've caught more so in scrimmages preseason, and I'll go over to the kids. I'll drop the flag. I'm like, listen, son, that is a hell of an athletic play.
Yeah,
but you can't do it, unfortunately. So try to get
you
that.
Can put that on your highlight
early.
tape, but just make sure you blank out the flag part.
Oh yeah, yep. No, I've actually seen that on some kids' Instagram and Twitter pages for recruiting.
Look, Saquon Barkley started. You know what I mean? It's what these guys see.
Yeah. So, and again, it's a safety type of thing. But it's a gray area because it's also one of those things that when it happens, it's like, whoa, that just happened. Like you're not anticipating that, and like a hold, you can kind of see getting set up. You're watching the grind there. Even like I said, that blindside block. We have our triggers of when we see somebody going back towards their own goal line. But that hurdling rule, it's few and far between. It doesn't happen too often. But yeah, again, it's more so for the safety of the back themselves as opposed to the tackler.
Well, even like the tackler, right? Like I just feel like, look, if you're going to go jump and now you're going to launch yourself, you may catch that knee right under the chin or right to the helmet as you're doing that. But I mean, I would have been hurdled probably 1,000 times. I swear to God, because I used to go so low. They didn't even have to hurdle, right? Because that guy was always bigger than me. So take the legs out, run through, right? Even like if a guy's in the air, push his legs to flip them. Like you got to do whatever you got to do. It's just so different. Like, and that was just one of those rules. I mean, Dave, I remember when we were coaching at RBR, it was our first scrimmage. Like one of the kids did it, and we were like, "That was a great play." And they dropped the flag. Explained it. Okay, cool. Like now we get it, right?
Yeah, Ferragine. I remember him.
He went right over.
I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, it was like we were like, "Whoa!" And then the rest were like, "Okay, let's figure this one out, right? Like, let's figure this one out." But
I was like, "Wow, this kid's pretty athletic. Better get her the ball."
Yeah, it's like, wait, he's only a junior too. We're good. But I just listen. One of the things for me is I just don't understand why coaches. Okay, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody blows calls. The harping on it, what does that do? Have I ever seen a ref pick up a flag and change a call? So, like, why are you going to sit there and wreck this guy on our sideline who probably didn't even throw the flag to begin with? And you're just going to keep crushing him play after play after play on something that happened 5 plays ago. Like, what are we doing? That's where us as coaches are so wrong. I just don't understand that part of it.
So I'll give you guys a great example of that. And I agree with you 100%. A big game this year. I'm not going to name schools, but we had a really big game this year, and it was a competitive game. And on a kickoff, we had an inadvertent whistle, which is it is by far the worst thing that we can do. Like our pregame, every pregame, and we're a crew of 6 that we're always together. And our head official, our crew chief, always talks about it. Keep the whistles deep, keep the flags deep. Like, let's make sure we see the play end. Technically, by rule, the play ends itself. It's not ending on a whistle. The whistle is just after the play is over. So that's why we're very big with, if you come to one of our games, you're probably only going to hear one whistle. We're not blowing the whistle all around the field. It's the person that got that play. But we had an inadvertent whistle. And our guy owned up to it. We came together as a crew. We talked about it and said some expletives in our own referee huddle itself. And
you're killing me, bro. You're killing me.
Myself and the head referee had to go to both sidelines and explain what happened. And the coach of the team that it hurt had some expletives, but then he's like, "All right, let's go. Let's play football." And from that point on, he did not say boo about it. He understood we screwed up. We made a mistake. It was a human error. It was a bad mistake. But we made the error. We owned up to it. And from that point on, we just played football and we officiated the same way the whole time. The head coach did not say anything to us the remainder of the game. He moved on from it. It was a special teams play. Unfortunately, the special teams coach, every time there was a punt, kickoff or anything, was sitting there screaming and yelling, "Oh, here it comes again." And we're like, "Coach, come on. Like we understand. We screwed up. And we're also, I mean, we're not big into we're not doing the makeup calls. Like that's not what we're there for.
Like, oh,
we're there to officiate the game.
There, so now I got to go get this one for this guy. A lot of guys do that. Like, you know, like especially if now a coach is all over you for that call. Now you almost feel like, all right, I just want to shut him up. So let me give a call. You know, and I think that's where us as coaches can change the whole narrative, because in reality, like, you're not the enemy. Some of these coaches, I feel like, look at referees like they're the enemy, or he's out to get me, or they just don't like us, or it's because of who we are. How about you just worry about your team, be good enough that you don't have 15 holding penalties?
Correct. And it's funny because all the years of coaching, my coaching background, I recently went to the Glazier coaching clinic this past year. Like, I'm still looking to try to get better to help my son.
Of course.
So I'm seeing all the high school coaches and stuff like that. And they're like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Well, coach," I said, "now when I'm in the middle of the field and you call a dumb play, I'm going to look over to the sideline and say, 'Hey, why'd you call that?'" What?
Right. Like you took the same notes I did, dude. Like, that's on you.
Yeah, why would you take a timeout there, coach? That was dumb.
Yeah, like you're
the worst coach ever.
Last one. What are you doing? Like, you know.
So yeah, we're not allowed to do that in the games to the coaches. So it's
and how I can only imagine. I mean, and that was always my fight with it. Like, I'd be coaching like the kids on the field. I'd be like, "Dude, you got to look for this," and like I just wouldn't be able, especially if I was like the back judge just sitting back there doing this. I'd be like, "Buddy, you got to run a better route. Like, why is your coach calling that?" Like, it's just, I get it, but I just think
I get
the
yelled
more
at
football
with
knowledge you guys have, I think the better.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that was one of the things that I enjoyed. It was definitely a mind shift going from the coaching aspect to the officiating aspect. And just like you guys as coaches, you're trying to focus, if you're a position coach, you're trying to focus on your position and your key and stuff like that. And I used to be an offensive coordinator, so I was watching the whole offense. And then going back now, all right, now I'm a position coach again. I'm watching my keys, my set of linemen, different things like that. So it was a mindset change, but I used to be an offensive lineman. I was an O-line coach and tight ends coach. So me being in the middle of the field there and watching the O-lineman, I'm home. I'm in my home area, so I know.
I can't tell you how many times playing safety in high school I had to move that back. Like, buddy, you got to go this way, man. Like, I can't see through you, bro.
Yep. And I like to officiate myself by talking to the kids first.
Absolutely.
Like, when I see the hold early in the game, going over 76, you got to keep your hands inside, move your feet, like different things like that. And especially at the JV and the freshman level, and then when you get down to the youth levels, I don't even want to do a flag with me on the field. Like, I would rather walk into the huddle and explain to the kid, "Hey, listen, Friday nights, that's going to be called. You need to do this. Coach 56 is doing this." I said, "I'd rather not throw a flag on you. Like, this is still learning level. I know everybody wants to win, but you also want to learn to play Friday nights and Saturday afternoons as opposed to Thursday and Monday. Like, let's teach these kids up. And if I can help in that aspect as an official, I want to do that. I don't want to be flag happy and throw them all the time."
Right, because an explanation coming from the guy in the stripes, right? Now, some coaches take that offensively, like, "Hey, don't talk to my guys." It's like, buddy, we're all on the same damn team here. Like, relax. He's explaining it to our guy better than probably we can explain it, or it's something we've never explained before, they never have seen before. That's why I love doing JV, man. It's like the best. People can't stand it. I love it.
I used to love it too. We used to draw plays up in the dirt and
it's
just have some fun with it.
Like, you're on the bus, like, "Hey, buddy, you're doing this. You're doing coach." That. Well, we're gonna figure it out. You're gonna do it today, like, you know.
On the bus, can anybody kick?
It's the learning aspect of it.
Yep.
I'm curious, what can be done to help officials do their job better? Like, is there?
That's a great question, Dave.
is there like, so obviously you guys out there, you have your crew of 6, but what are some of the tools that they can start to give? Like, I'll use, for example, like, I guess some places use instant replay, right? Like,
Mhm.
what are things
Oh,
that
God.
can continue to help officials in high school do their job even better?
So recently, I want to say this is the second or the third year now, the state of New Jersey has now put together, we're doing seminars every other week now. We're doing these online Zoom meetings
Awesome.
now by the state of New Jersey that's being run. We're utilizing Huddle. So I go back and I'm watching all of my games to see if I missed something, where my positioning was, my keys, and as a crew, we're then texting back and forth. Hey, take a look at play 97. So we're starting to dive more into the technology and still working year round. Like I said, with these, we're meeting every other week. Usually Tuesdays or Wednesday nights, and it's a Zoom meeting, but we're breaking down film and going over. We had one recently that was just about holding. Where we had one where we broke off into different Zoom rooms, and as umpires, it was just umpires from around the state talking about different rules and different things that we're seeing and how we can continue to improve. Excuse me, problem talking there. But yeah, it's just a matter of staying in the books. Summertime comes. One of the reasons why I enjoyed refereeing over football is I live down by the shore, so I get to go to the beach and have my rule books and sit there and read the book instead of driving an hour to go to weight training and stuff like
Right.
that. So it freed up some family time, but my nose is still in the books. I'm still trying to read, stay up to date with what's going on, and just trying to stay in touch with people. With the podcast that I've got going right now, my whole goal is to try to just bring more awareness to officials, to coaches. Like I'm talking with coaches, I'm trying to get players on. I got guys from the rules committee from Indianapolis that I'm going to have on, just to try to bring more knowledge and to keep the game going and understand that these kids are working year round, and I want the game to be the reward for their hard work that they've done. So I want to do the best that I can so that they don't know I'm there. So
Right.
like, I want to not be seen. I want to talk and have this, but I don't want them to say, oh, that Mike D's a pain in the ass. We know when we walk in, he's going to throw 7 holding penalties, things like that. I want to give the kids the reward for all the hard work that they're doing year round, doing the 7-on-7s, doing the weight training, doing all the stuff that they're doing off season. I don't want to cheat them. So I think just staying in the books, getting involved, doing other stuff, doing some 7-on-7 tournaments in the off season, staying involved in that. And even again, going to the coaching clinics and just seeing the coaches, building a rapport with the coaches, where I now know I can go up to a coach and talk to them and give them, hey, coach, I didn't see it, or coach, this is what I saw, this is why I didn't call it, as opposed to the old school mentality and being combative and saying that because that's what I said. And that's not my personality. That's not my crew's personality. But some coaches have that in their mind preemptively that, okay, this guy's against us. So I started getting yelled at when I was coaching after winning 49-0. So now when I have the stripes on, I kind of just figure I'm going to get yelled at by somebody. So it was an
That's
easy
a given.
transition for me. So,
It
but yeah,
is,
just staying studying.
is there there's always talk about like shortage of officials. Like, is there a difficulty getting officials to do football, and what are the contributing factors to that, if that is the case?
Yeah, our numbers really dropped initially because of COVID. COVID
Yep.
was the first thing that really hurt us. I mean, and I'll admit it. When I was officiating the games during COVID, I was masked up. I had gloves on. I had an electric whistle. I didn't know. I was like, well, I'm going to take whatever precaution I can here.
Right.
Where a lot of officials did opt out at that point, and unfortunately didn't come back. So the numbers started dropping there. We're seeing we are now in New Jersey and the shore area, we are actually seeing a little bit of an uptick now in the last year or so with getting new cadets in there. But we got to a point where we were having so many Friday night games that we didn't have enough crews.
Right.
So it was something that was difficult, and our assigner would try to contact some of the ADs, and they were like, listen, can you guys move a game to Saturday? We know you have the lights and you want the Friday night lights. We don't have enough crews, or the crew that you're going to get is
you're
going to
not
be
want,
a mixed crew. Yeah. So, it put a strain on our assigner in that aspect. Numbers, and it's national right now. The numbers have
it's
down.
not just select here. It's not just in this state. It's all over.
Yeah. And I'll admit myself, I stopped doing the youth games because initially when I was doing the youth games, some of the towns would have 12 coaches on the sidelines for 20 kids, and we would have 3 officials on the field trying to watch 22 kids. And Daddy was watching his son be held on the far sideline of a toss sweep coming to the near sideline that we weren't calling. And I'm like, Coach,
it doesn't even matter.
We're triangulating the ball. We're watching the ball. What happens backside, we'll keep an eye out for safety. But those guys, well, they watch a game on Sunday afternoon, so they thought they knew everything.
Of course.
And it got to be to a point where it was more of a hassle. And then I got involved in coaching my own son, so that kind of kept me out of officiating the youth one. But yeah, we're still looking, and that's another reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now with the podcast and stuff like that, and trying to jump on with you guys, is I want to bring awareness and I want to recruit. I want to get those guys coming out of college. I mean,
right.
The percentage of the
reffing.
Well, go into coaching too. Like, I'm not saying that, but with the officiating, unless you're a coach and you're going into education or something like that, you might not be able to do the time that you have. Right. Where officiating, you could show up on a Friday night, on a Saturday afternoon, where you're out of your job. So it's something to consider with the college guys that are graduating, that if you still want to be involved in the sport, having the playing knowledge, having that background is something great. So I'm trying to bring awareness to that, to still recruit and get those young guys, those energetic guys out there with us. I mean, I'm an old offensive lineman, so my body's feeling it, and being an umpire in there, I still feel it every once in a while. I got safety me from the back.
No, that makes sense. Does the NJSA or I don't know, the groups that do the assigning officials, do they ever reach out to colleges? And like, to me, that would be a slam dunk. Like, I just off the top of my head, I think those guys that work in the recreation, not just guys who were, maybe played football or whatever that might want to do it, but literally the guys that work in recreation, right? The intramurals, right? They're already doing some of this stuff. They're already like reffing games, like flag games, and they kind of have some experience with it as a student. And I always wondered why they don't go and just start getting those guys like
recruiting them like
on crews. No, I don't know. Like as a 7th guy, right? This is the guy that's training. He's not making any calls per se, but he's shadowing. So you have a 7th.
That's kind of what they do now, right? Like, if you get into it as a cadet, like, you got to do some games where you're literally just holding the sticks on the sideline.
But there's no young guys. They're almost all of them are older.
Because none of them want to go and only make $50 a game.
I don't know about that. I don't know about those recreation kids who are doing it in college. I think those guys do. They don't understand the avenues available to them. They don't. So I wouldn't know how. I know officials because we have them at our 7-on-7. So I would know who to talk to. But like, most people do not know who to talk to.
Yeah. So they recently, again, the last couple of years, have started really promoting stuff on social media and stuff like that. But unless you're tagged or unless you're following certain social media avenues, you might not see those. But yeah, the state is recruiting. The state, our specific chapter, we have somebody that's assigned to recruiting and talking to people and trying to get people. And our cadet number for this year, I think we're in the 20s, which is that was what signed up. Now, their first class, I think, was last week, so I don't know how many people actually showed up for the first class, but we had over 20 just sign up, and this past graduating class, if you want to say it, was our biggest one in a long time also. So we're seeing our numbers go up. We are recruiting and trying to get the younger guys. But yeah, I agree. I'm talking with Coach Garrett, possibly going up there myself and sitting down with the team and
Yeah.
trying to reach out to different colleges and stuff like that, and just trying to get those young guys and just get the awareness out there of this is what we do, that this is the money that you can make. But it's, again, I do it because I love football. Like,
Right.
The money helps. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to turn that down. But I mean, we've done the Phil Sims North-South game the last 2 years, my crew, and that's free. We do that for the love of the game. We have some fun, and
Right. That
it's
is
an all-star game. We're not getting paid for that.
Should be. That's what that game should be.
So it's a matter of getting out there, getting experience, seeing it, and still staying involved in the sport. Like I said, it's something that you can still be a part of the sport. I still get amped up on Friday nights. Like,
hell yeah.
from my playing days to my coaching days to now, when I'm in the middle of the field and I'm talking to the kids and you got the good music playing in the background, I'm bouncing around still a little bit. I'm getting myself amped up. I still love the atmosphere. Give me a great high school band. Like, I love that stuff. So I'm still involved in the game, and I'm bringing my kid there, and he's seeing it and he's falling in love with it. So it's something that, it's a lot of fun. And it's still, even getting yelled at. Again, I did it before. You got to know what to take, what to accept, and a line. And most of the coaches understand that. And let's go play football.
Right.
It makes 100% sense. I just think that there is an avenue there because the young people are looking for opportunities, and they don't have jobs are different than they were in the past. So, they're going to need other ways to make extra money. And guys that are involved in the game, in the past, that's a huge. I think it's a huge avenue because of that fact. And I do think that, the colleges, I mean, those kids, they don't know nothing. So if you're actually out there working with them saying, hey, listen, in the fall season, you're talking 12 weeks, you can make a few $1,000s more in your pocket, easily. And you're putting that in your pocket, dude, whatever you're doing, that's a huge supplement to it. That's, over the course of 10, 20 years, that's a good amount of extra money. But, well, it's been great having you on. Any last things you want to leave us with that that we could remember from an officiating standpoint?
Listen, a recent episode that I just had, we were talking about replay, and I know you guys mentioned it before. We're in the state, we don't have replay system anymore. We had it, but we don't have it anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to start seeing it again coming down the road, because unfortunately what happened with the basketball game recently.
Oh, yeah.
But we just understand that we're human. We're out there trying to give the best experience for the kids. We're trying to make it as best as possible. So we're going to make mistakes. We're going to miss a call here and there. We're going to make a call that you might not like. But again, the parents, the coaches, we all make calls in life that we don't like or that get somebody upset. It's the human element, and we just ask that everybody understands that hey, we're human too, and we make mistakes. Try not to.
Why did they get rid of the replay? I was curious.
The technology.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't okay.
Yeah. So with New Jersey was one of the experimental groups of just using Huddle. So you had the end zone view and then the 50-yard line view, and the referee was looking at an iPad on the sideline for a call. But then we had two scenarios back in 21 in the college game. In the championship games up at Rutgers that were two very big calls that could have went either way, that replay didn't overturn, that people's cell phones
that's another angle too, I think.
Yeah, the cell phones had a better angle of it, that the replay official didn't have that view, so they couldn't change the call one way or the other. Because of that, just the technology aspect of it just wasn't there. Where now with Huddle having the integrated scoreboard that's integrated on Huddle with some of the schools. That I think you're going to start seeing again, especially with timing issues and stuff like that. You might start seeing that come back, especially in playoff aspects.
Definitely. That and the play clock, right? And play clock. I think that's such a big thing. I wish schools could have one,
Oh, well, I only know of one school right now in our area that has one for the varsity game. So it's but again,
it's just like the shot clock argument.
And everybody in the South has it. Correct. Everybody in the South has a play clock. It's right in the corner of the end zone. I don't understand why they don't.
It's money. It's money.
I've seen it at every place.
Some schools, you're talking about some schools that can barely have footballs, and that's just
I don't buy the money aspect of that. Like, how are these schools in the inner city that probably don't have that much money doing it? How are I going to?
They're not doing it.
It's basically if they just mandate it, everyone will find the money
for those schools that can't afford it, and then the taxes are going to go up, and there you go. So
the taxes are going to go up regardless in New Jersey.
That's politics, brother. That's politics. We live.
That's a whole different discussion. The taxes are going up in New Jersey. Murphy decided to tag 220. Now it's 220 on the toll
on the Parkway. Yep.
Just make it $3. Just make it $10. What does it matter? What does it matter anymore? But yes. So that. But yeah, I mean, I think that you're right though. The play clock is it. Listen, one of my beefs used to be because I ran the no huddle. I used to have a huge beef on the play clock. My team goes, they run. I run a no huddle. The ball gets set. I got my 25 my seconds, right?
Yeah.
And the other team, what is how many seconds is it between plays? I forgot.
It's 40 and 25. So it depends upon what stopped the clock.
What stopped the clock? So So no huddle would end up only basically having that 25 a lot of times. And the teams that huddle, they wouldn't roll the clock until those guys get into the huddle. Play comes in, and it would drive me nuts. It was like why am I running the no huddle? Like the whole point of it. And I feel like now there may be obviously a lot of officials now that are getting more and more on board with it. But it used to be one of my sore spots was running a no huddle versus team. Teams would sit on the ball in the huddle. Like I remember when we would play Homedale, I'd be running no huddle, okay, and then they would take forever to get into the huddle, take forever to get the play on. I would watch a minute plus tick off, and before the next play, That was one of my pet peeves. It used to drive me bonkers. And I could never get an answer for why are they who's moving slower? Explain that one to me.
So the rule is when the play ends and you'll see the official put their hand up that they've got the spot. So when the play ends, it's basically 40 seconds from that time. So each team gets 40 seconds. If there's a stoppage in the play because of a penalty or something like that, it's going to be 25 seconds once we blow the ready for play whistle. So it's those are the basics of what the timing rule is. I can't lie to you. Some people have a 45-second clock as opposed to a 40-second clock. It depends on the crew and who's on the watch and when they're going to restart it. And the funny thing is I had a coach complaining to us one time that was up by 30 points.
Oh my God. Come on, dude.
And that he's like, they're taking too long in the huddle. I'm like, Coach, that's your team.
Yeah. Be like,
that's you guys. Don't you want the clock to take a little bit more time to get out of here at this point in time?
Right.
He's
like you're already getting embarrassed. What are we doing?
So
that's interesting. Yeah, that's one of the always.
Well, that changed too this year, right? The mercy rule, right? Like if you go up now, I think it just stays no matter what, even if you score a touchdown and close the gap, right? It's just going to be once you hit that point where you're up by, I believe it's 33. 33. It stays and the clock stays running.
Oh, really?
Even if you go and score a touchdown, and now it's not 33 anymore. I think
in the second half.
Interesting.
So
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Why,
trying
why
to
did
keep-
they change
keep
that?
They
Because
still
remember,
get a shot in the beginning. I got it.
well, remember
Yeah.
years ago in the state championship game, Ramapo was down 35 points and came back to win the game in a state championship game. So now I don't know, state championship game, they might allow it. I don't know. But I wonder, I mean, that's such a rare thing that happens, but I guess technically it could happen, right? A team's up 33 points, a team scores 7, somehow they got in a roll. But really, there's no time to really come back now. So it's obviously it must be a safety thing. Is the main reason.
What was happening is you'd get those blowout games, and that's when some kids would start taking plays off, and then all of a sudden they're rolling their ankle, and
Right.
It for the Ramapo scenario is a very small percentage of what happened. It was more so, okay, team's up by 42 points in the second half. Now a team scores a touchdown, and now we're going back to a regular clock again when both teams have their JV squads in there, and that's when somebody ends up breaking a leg or something worse. So it was just like, it didn't need to happen type of scenario.
Got it.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I figured it was a safety deal.
Yeah.
I figured
But
that.
yeah, it's only the second half. If it happens in the first half, it's still a regular clock. So you can keep on running it up on people.
Listen, I ain't worried about blowing anybody out. If anything, I'm worried about the other side. Like, let's keep this thing running, buddy.
Yeah. Yep.
No doubt. Cool. This was awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Really
Listen, I
great
appreciate
stuff.
you guys having me on. Really do.
What's the podcast? What's the name of your podcast?
Man.
Whistle Talk?
Yeah, plug your podcast. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah. So the podcast is called Whistle Talk, Inside the Mind of a Football Official, but you could search it up. Mike D, the referee, is my tagline. And again, I've got from officials to coaches. I'm actually interviewing tomorrow a gentleman from Southern California.
Nice.
Had a guy on from Alabama last week,
baby.
so and some New Jersey guys, some coaches and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to get the word out there. Hopefully, educate some people, remind some other officials, and to recruit. So it's Whistle Talk. It's on all the major podcast platforms. So take a listen, comment on it, give me some reviews. I'm an official. I got thick skin, so say, Mike, what the hell are you talking about?
Ain't nothing gonna penetrate that.
You need those 5 stars. That brings the views up. You need those 5 stars.
Yeah, give me those 5 stars. And then tell me
Tell me why you hate me as an official. Like, let me know.
Yeah. And you can tell me you hate me. Just give me 5 stars. That's fine.
That's it. Rate them and go.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, really appreciate you, though, taking the time. I know we wanted to get this done to just get a little bit of a different angle for our viewers and whatnot. And, we figure these guys spend enough time screaming at this guy. We might as well actually go inside his head and talk to him about it. So really appreciate you taking the time, buddy.
No, absolutely. And I'm always going to be here for you guys. If you guys ever have other questions or whatever, please feel free to reach out. I mean, like I said, I'm still trying to teach the game. No matter what side of the ball I'm on, I'm still trying to teach the game and make it better for everybody if I can.
Awesome, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike. Have a great day.
You too, guys. Thank you.
You
Bye.
too.
That was great. I learned a lot. That was me, Mikey. I wanted to learn. Because
dude, I don't want to be an official ever.
Well, I think that there are. I really do think, like, if you remember, like, we did. It was a couple of years ago. It was the year you weren't working with the Beasts, but you did the events. So, we had the 7-on-7 tournament, and the guy who does the officials, I think we took 4 full fields, and he just didn't have enough. I don't think he had like enough crews, right? So I got like some of those kids from like the local college or whatever, and they refereed it, and they were like, at first, but then they kind of got into it. Like that was kind of my like thing. Like, until they do it,
right?
You
don't
really know, right? Like,
and I definitely agree with you. If you can go to colleges and you see these guys out there reffing, their intramural flag league, right? Like, hey, buddy, maybe you want to think about doing this. Like, I mean, listen, you can make some bang.
You can make more money,
look,
man.
You got to work, right? Like, you got to hustle.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a good crew, I mean, think about it. You're getting a game Friday night, right? You're getting a Saturday afternoon game, right? Then Sunday, you can go and do how many youth games.
Yeah,
and
right,
then
right.
Monday, you grab a JV game.
Right.
Or
During this
Thursday,
football season,
and then
you do
you
4
could.
days.
Some of these teams do freshman games on Thursdays.
I didn't even think about that. You're 100% right.
Like
There's
you could be working 5 days a week.
5 days a week. Right. And and if you're a football guy, for the most part, you just have to do it in the fall. And then
then
you know,
can
maybe you do a
supplement in
7-on-7
spring,
here and there.
In the spring, like winter,
Couple here,
okay,
there,
yep. And then, hey, I go and do 7-on-7s in the spring and early summer to get ready to go.
Yeah, no doubt. Very cool. Very cool stuff. Well,
Definitely interesting.
All right. Well, we'll get off. This was a great podcast. Good viewership again. And we'll go from there next week.
Everybody
Next
wants
week
to
we
know why referees are. Everybody wants to hit on a referee.
That's right. Next week we got a pretty busy week. A few days. Those of you guys who follow us, few days of podcasts at least next week. They're in spring break.
Gotta love spring break. Teachers and coaches are free. They're like, what can I do?
Yeah, exactly. Come on, and then
we got a big one in 2 weeks, man.
And then in 2 weeks we're gonna have one that. Well, we'll get that promoted in due time, but that might be an all-timer. Until next time. Until next time. See you later.
Have a good one, guys.